Hello guys, welcome to my channel Bengaluru Techies. This is the part 4 of .NET video tutorial series. In this video, we will continue to develop our IMDb application, and if you have not watched our previous series, I'll be leaving the link in the description. I would recommend everyone to watch them so that you will be in sync. In today's video, we'll be completely developing the login module where user will be able to register himself for our system, and using the credentials he can log into our system. And also, if the credential he forgets his password, he can request for a new auto-generated password. Before switching to Visual Studio, I would humbly like to request every viewer of my channel to subscribe to our channel and support us. Back to video. Let's switch to Visual Studio and start the development activity. I would request everyone to watch the video till the end, as I have discussed multiple topics here, not only just coding here. I have discussed multiple topics such as certain concepts of OOPS, solid principles, especially on open-closed principle, and certain patterns such as MVC, entire pattern, and repository pattern. And when I have switched back to repository pattern, and when again I will be switching back to entire pattern, and also throughout the video I'll be using, please let me know in the comments if a detailed session is required. This is because there are like multiple concepts I've used, such as like data attributes, remote validation, regular expression, and so on. The other topics also which I've explained alone itself requires a huge explanation. So for that reason, I have used that particular phrase again and again. Please, again, I'll insist if I've used anywhere, and if you feel that you need to explore more or understand more, please let me know in the comments so that I'll be doing technical words which I'll be using here, so that your understanding will become much easier. Instead of doing a complete separate video for this, I have kept it very short. What I believe is diving in and doing makes learning faster. In .NET, all the classes will end with .cs. The .cs stands for C#. The syntax for class is access modifier, class, and class name. So a class can contain just a properties, so which will be having a get and set method. We will be able to retrieve the data from this method, and we will be able to set the data to this method. A class which just has this get and set methods are called DTOs. I'll be referring them as a DTO, entity, or model. Those are I'll be using as interchangeable words. And the class which has both the properties and functions or methods are called business classes. I'll be using a term called view model. So the view model is specifically tailored for a user interface alone. What are the properties or complex objects which I'll be writing within this view model will be specifically for UI binding alone. So the view model also will have a syntax similar to this one. So the access modifier can take values such as public, internal, private, protected. I'll be explaining going forward what are the rules of this, when to use public, and so on. When I say instantiation of a class, the syntax will be new and the class name followed by bracket. So this is assuming that class has just a default constructor. Just understand the syntax. Once you start coding, the concepts and the syntax will make more sense, and you'll be able to catch up more. Apart from class, I'll be using interfaces. So again, the syntax for interfaces are, instead of class, it will be just interface. So the access modifier of interface is by default public, and the interface name. So the interface name will start with a prefix of I. The main difference between a class and interface is the class will have a implementation. So this method will have its implementation. So you'll be doing some logics here, say 1 plus 2 or so on. There will be no implementation, just it is a signature. A class can inherit multiple interfaces, but a single class. So that is the concept of OOPS. Again, I'll be discussing this more in detail. For UI, we will be using something called CSHTML. So it is again a HTML tightly coupled with C#. So when I say C#, this view modules. So here again, CS stands for C# HTML, and I'll be using terms such as client side. So this is basically the user device which I will be referring to in this video context, and the server side stands for where the application is hosted. I'll be implementing dependency injection. Again, this is a vast concept, so you need to understand dependency injection helps you in loosely coupling. So these are the terms you need to know to quickly catch the contents of the video. Here we are using MVC pattern. MVC pattern was initially used in mobile application or native OS based application development activities, but now it is one of the mostly widely used pattern across any type of application development. So MVC stands for model view controller. As you can see, models, views, and controllers. So whenever user tries to access our application, he'll be able to see the view, and user clicks on that view. Whenever he performs some action, a controller will, and this URLs are bind to an action method. So anything which you write inside the controller, so this methods are called action methods, which gets invoked based on a user action. So this method returns action results. For a particular action, there will be a result always associated that it will be returning. Action result accepts wide range of responses. It might be a complete complex object or a view or a simple data type. So for action method, there will be an action result, and the controller is responsible to coordinate between the model and give an appropriate view. So whenever a request comes through a route, action method will be invoked, This will internally call the models which are responsible to hold the business logic or the data binding objects, and they will either fetch the data or save the data and give us a response. That response will be given as an action result for you, which will be again binded on the view. So this kind of pattern will help us to segregate the code into three separate layers, that is under controllers, models, and views. So here the models which we have will be moved or classified again into two separate layers or a project here, that is BL and DL. So let's add a login controller. To add any controller, right click on the controllers folder, or over on add, it will give an option to add controller, and here you can select empty, read write, and using entity framework. So we already have entity framework. If I want to tightly couple, it will give all the CRUD operations, that is add, delete, and update. All those options I will be getting here itself. So I'll be not going with this. I'll go with the empty. Click add, change your controller name. Here I'll name it as login. This is a best practice we follow. There is no necessity you have to end your classes with the name of controller, just to say this is your controller class. That's why we have a controller at the suffix of all the controller classes which we are going to add. So click on add. So our login controller got created. Let's name this as login. So the associated view, let's create associated view. So again, to create any associated view, you have to right click on this and you will get an option to add view. If already view is already existing, you can click on go to view. So it will try to open the view which is associated for this particular action method. As of now, there is no view, so you will not get anything. So let me add that first. Here also you can add a empty view or a razor view. So I'll add again empty here. If the action method name and the view names are same, you need not to return the view name here. It will automatically bind itself. If they are different, you have to specifically mention this is a view name which you are trying to open up. So here the name is login. So I'll change this to login, and you can see the extension, it is cshtml. Click on add. So if you noticed here, it went ahead and created a login folder under which it created a cshtml page. So similarly, if you create n number of controllers and if you try to add, a respective folder will be created in the controller name, and all the views within that controller for action methods will be created under that particular folder. So this is our login controller and login action method, for which this is the view. Now if you right click and try to go to view, it will open automatically. The view just now got created. So to keep our application responsive and support multiple devices, might be a big screen or a laptop screen or a mobile screen, we will be using Bootstrap and multiple other CDNs. So to install any of the CDNs, the default way to install I will show you. When the default template is created, it will also have certain default libraries. So you can open this www root. Under library, you can see what are already installed. A Bootstrap is installed, which is the one which we will be using for responsiveness. A jQuery is installed, and jQuery validations are installed. This jQuery validations we'll be using for client-side validation. For example, user is provided with a login screen and he doesn't provide any login name or a password. He directly try to click that login button, or he just provides the username and try to perform the login operation. As there is no password, it is we already know the validations will fail and we can't perform a successful authentication. So instead of getting a hit at the server end, we can do a client-side validation. To perform that kind of validations, we'll be using these two particular libraries. Whenever you want to install any additional client libraries, right click on www root and hover over on add. Here you will get a client-side library option. Click on that and you can search the CDNs. You can select out of this whatever the options you want. You can search for the standard CDNs and the library can be added into your system. For example, I'll be using Font Awesome. This is where I'll get most of the fonts or icons. So select Font Awesome and the version will be mentioned here, and once it get added, how it looks, this is how the structure of the files will be. That also will be shown you here, and click on install. It will install the same for you. So it has installed, so you can notice here the Font Awesome folder got added here. So let's start building the login screen. While building the login page also, there is a trick which you can use. If you're doing for POC or for your own learning purpose, you don't need to put lots of efforts on developing a standard UIs. You can go to your browser and search for login screen free templates, and you'll get lots of free templates which are available, which are responsive, very well designed and freely available. For example, these are few of the login screen which you could use directly just by downloading. I also downloaded one of the login screen for reference. So this is the login form which I have downloaded, which looks something like this upon running. These are the components within the login template which we downloaded. If you double click this one, this is how it looks, as similar to the template which is there. So to use it directly, you have complete HTML code which is available here. And if you maintain the folder structure similar to this, it automatically works for you. Most of the components which are used here, like for example the Bootstrap related libraries, And similarly, the libraries related to jQuery would be already present in your project as part of the standard template, or like you can go ahead and install, and you can change the path of reference from this one instead of that. Or if you maintain the folder structure similar to this, it readily works for you. For this particular demonstration purpose, what we will do is we'll try to build the login page from the scratch, and we will see the concepts of Bootstrap and CSS, jQuery, JavaScript, wherever in point of time we use them. And for the demonstration purpose and to keep the video simple and short, I'll be not completely showing the UI elements which I'm coding. I'll be completely coding and I'll be showing at the end, and I'll explain completely in details regarding the components which I've used here and their dependencies. To build any HTML page or CSS HTML page, the first tag you need to have is document type HTML and HTML opening tag, and you can close this one. Within HTML opening tag and closing tag, you can have your headers and body. So this is a standard HTML template which has to be used, and you can add your references. Any libraries references might be CSS or JavaScript jQuery references, either in the header or the body. So based on your need, you can add it in a respective place. So for example, here I would be needing Bootstrap related CSS items. So just you have to drag and drop here. So it will bring all the dependencies. You can remove the ankle tags here. Now you have Bootstrap related all the CSS files, and similarly for this to work you need to have the dependent JS files also. So similarly you can do after this. You need to remember one thing: any JS to work, you need to have the base JS to be inherited first. In this case it is jQuery, so this which is available under this folder, this should be your first reference. I would also need jQuery validation. So, and one more thing you can do here is whenever you have a min.js, no need to have both min.js and the complete JS file. This is a minification of the same, so you can remove the main files from here and keep the just minification. Both work same. I also need this one. You need to know the sequence for this validation to work. The first reference should be jQuery, then the validation, and then the validation unburst you. So all the classes which you are noticing here, that is form, container, align, content, center, so this all are already part of this Bootstrap class, Bootstrap CSS or Bootstrap min.js. So all the respective styles will be already present in this one of the files, so that's why it automatically inherits. And you can start running this and see. To run this or view this, you have to right click on this and click on view in browser. So this basically runs your application. This basically brings login screen onto the browser. So this is how currently it looks, something for us. And here if you notice the IMDb home privacy, this is a layout page which will be appearing post login. So I don't need this one as of now. So what you have to do is, if you don't want any of your page not to inherit your layout page is kind of a master page where you'll be loading all the other pages. So what you have to do is you have to come ahead here and you have to say layout null. So if you do this one, it don't inherit the layout properties and you will be not seeing this all thing. So if you refresh this now, so you are still seeing here. Why? Because in the .NET framework, whatever the changes you do in your CSHTML pages, it used to automatically refresh and available on the screen. But from the .NET Core onwards, this is not possible directly as such. You have to install a couple of packages to see the real-time changes of your CSS HTML to be reflected even without build, right? So that let's go ahead and install certain packages. You have to install something called runtime compilation, that is Microsoft MVC Razor runtime compilation. Install the package, and in the program class you have to do the configuration for the same. Just add this package, add runtime compilation, Razor compilation. So this will allow you to view your changes even without rebuilding or rerunning the application. So let's go ahead and refresh our application now. Let's go ahead and refresh our application and see how it looks. As you can see, the layout is now not visible as we have added or inherited layout equal to null, and this would be our login screen. So we'll make it more beautiful and more appealing to the end user. So what we'll add is we'll add a border. We'll make it to be center aligned. Now also it is center aligned, but it has taken the complete space. That's why it is looking the big one. So what I'll be most of the time doing is, instead of always going to your CSHTML and doing changes, so that what I'll use is inspect tools of the browser. So if you click F12 or right click and select the inspect, you will get this option. And this is the selector of the any component or DOM element. So you can select the complete form or individual component of the DOM, and you can apply your styles and see how it looks. Let me start adding styles so that it looks like a form. What I'll do is I'll start adding to this particular tag. This is a complete page, so you can see container fluid. If you use just container, there will be little padding. Apart from that, it will occupy most. So onto this class, onto this div tag, what I'll do is I'll add my stylings, which will be applicable only for the selection of the item. You can see, right? I need some border for this, and I also need to make it look like it is popping out. So where I'll use some shadow effects and a little Z index if required. and I'll add a different background for the actual background, that is backside for this particular tag. And for this particular tag, I'll be adding a complete whiter background. I'll go ahead and add inline styles. You can add something like this styles, and for example, I'll simply add background color, select background here, and then say red, and start adding something like this. So if you want to add multiple styles similar to this, then this inline styling tag will grow up like anything. So you have a two option here whenever you are adding styles. You can add an inline style, that is for a tag level, or you can add on the file level, that is inline file styles. And you can also add a styles on the external files as well. So here the file styles which you are seeing under the CSR external file styles, and you can add a reference of the same, and the styles will be applicable here as well. So when to choose which particular thing, if it is very simple, very single line style you want to add, or a simple style you want to add, you can go ahead with this one. Or but most of the time I'll not recommend this one. I'll always recommend to use either this, that is within the file level, or the complete global level. So the advantage of going with the global level is you can refer this particular file into multiple UI pages, and the same style will be applicable. And if it is only specific to this particular page, then go ahead with this. In my case, this is specifically only for this particular login page. That's why what you have to do is under head tag, you have to add style tags, and you can select type text or CSS, and then you can start writing the styles here. So for that, what you have to do is you have to start creating classes. So here what I'll do is I'll create my class here, and I'll just remove the style. So say login form class, login form. So you can see here, right, this is not available. So this is the custom class which I created just now. So here you have to put dot and then this class name and the flower bracket. Within this, you can start adding your style. So what I've done is I've added width and the background color and border radius. Let me save this and refresh the screen. As you can see, there is a border radius. The border radius is for the edge. Instead of giving a sharper edge, it is a round edge kind of thing. And as you can see, it is little popped out, right? And it has a shadow effect. I don't need a Z index here. It already has a shadow effect here. And you can see, you can notice there is a difference between this background and this background. So what I'll do is to make it more visible, I'll add a background color for this one. So say I'll go with gray, and whenever you know the color, you can just go ahead with their name, or you can go ahead with their ash values. And if you don't know, you can click on this particular icon which you see here, the color thing title. On this you can just drag and see this, how which one looks more suitable for this page to make a difference. This is a different form and this is the background. This color would look fine for me, so let me add this. Along with this, if you notice, this particular form is completely moved to towards the left, and it is attached at the top as well. So let me add certain paddings also. So let's start adding this all styles here. So now as you noticed, you need to add it for a container fluid, not to the login form. Here you can add an inline style. As you can see, this is the inline styles which I'm adding. Or you can add a class, you can create a class again and add the style in the file level. So let me see how much the padding should say 10 px. Whenever you go ahead and provide this px, right, the pixel level, so this will sometimes mess up your what is this responsiveness. Make sure you will give it in a proper way. And even if you have given this px and you want, if it is not responsive in particular devices, you can add media queries and make it more elegant even in that particular device also. I'll show you how to see responsiveness. Select this particular responsive toggle device responsive. So without this, it is nothing but your application in a laptop or a device which you have opened. And if you click on this, it will give a wide range of options for you. You can select a different device type from phone to tablet or pads. So for example, iPad Pro I'll select, and you can change it to 100% here. This is how your application would look like in when it is opened in a iPad, which dimension is this, width and height. And similarly in a Samsung phone, it would look something like this again. So let me make it 100 again here, and you can see how it looks even in a rotate, like horizontal and vertical mode. And you can edit this one in all the browsers, like this option is available in all the browsers. And you can edit this one by clicking on this settings or even on this. So let me click on the settings. Here you can select a device of your choices. So here you can add BlackBerry and whatever the device you like, Galaxy. So whenever you add on the drop down, you'll be getting these options. So this is for BlackBerry. This is how your application would look like in BlackBerry. You can add device frames here. I have added, for some reason it is not visible. Like when this is enabled, you would be able to see the frame here, which is nothing but the device how it looks. Actually, that frame will be visible here. For some reason, it is not working. Let's continue making this login page more appealing for our users. So after applying all the styles, this is how my login page looks. Let's compare this login page with IMDb login page. So the IMDb login page looks something similar to this, and ours looks like something like this. So we are asking email address. We don't go with the phone kind of login here, and we are asking password, and we have a information kind of a message here, and then forgot password. Here I guess forgot password is given here, and I have made sure this application works fine in a different device also. Let's see the responsiveness. So you can inspect as informed, and you can select this one here, which I have already selected. And as you can see, it fits perfectly fine even in the different device. Now we are in iPhone 12. Let's switch to iPad. So in iPad also it looks fine, and similarly in Surface Pro. And you can tilt this like the horizontal view and the vertical view, and it looks fine. Let's see for IMDb how it looks in different devices responsiveness wise. So we are in Surface Pro. So it looks fine, but I see there is a lots of gap here. Let's see in iPhone. Yeah, again, this is, I guess they have fixed this one. So you can see lots of white spaces, but in my case, I have handled this in to be always placed at a center. So I guess that's not an issue. That again, they have separate application altogether for a different device. So they would have taken care of this with respect to the nativeness of that OS. So here, what I could change here is the color of the button. I'm feeling to change instead of a normal blue, I'll go with the IMDb yellow color. So let me take the styles from that button itself. Yeah, so they have given this one button primary. So basically they have written ankle tag. So on top of this, they have given this one color as this and background color as this. So let me copy this one and see. Since I would be using this one across my different buttons which are available throughout the application. So what I'll do is I'll move this one to the main CSS page. So here my main CSS page is site.css. Let me name it as IMDb button. And the only thing what I'll do is I'll take that color, but I still want the field which we have from the default Bootstrap classes. So let me add it and see how it looks. The default Bootstrap class which are getting added is btn primary. So this has its own style, and I need to add the reference of the same. So here I don't refer site.css. So let me add that reference. So now if I go ahead and refresh my page, so let's see how the button looks. So it looks something like this, and so it is like yellowish. And here again, let's see how the, I think they have a text color also to be set. So let's add that as well. Again, let me refresh this. So now you can see the login thing, and let me remove the responsiveness for now. So here on hover, it is still giving blue. Let's see what it looks on hover over here. So it is yellowish itself. So for that, they would have added pseudo classes. So here you can see, right? This is the pseudo classes which they will be adding. So click on this and select whatever the pseudo effects you want. Here for now, I am interested on hover effects. So are the focus effects. So here the hover effects is this one. So you can see here, right? On hover also, they are giving the same effects. So what I have to do is I have to just copy the same thing and add the pseudo. So how will you add? Put a colon here and hover. Now on hover, you can see there is that blue thing is not coming, but still I'm not getting the effect which they are having here. Okay, they also don't have any effect. Okay, so but if I remove that one, like for example, say I just go ahead and remove this, by default Bootstrap has a kind of color change here. From a different color, it is getting changed. So what I'll do is I'll still keep how it is there in the IMDb. So that should be fine for me. And the button is complete. What is that? Button is for a complete length, and they will call it a sign in. So let me also call it a sign in. So I think now it looks more to, and they have a border radius. Let me use the border radius. I think they have a higher border radius. So border radius is 8 px, and they have box shadow. Let me copy those also. So I think now it looks similar to the button of the login page. And if they don't have a account, so here also they have given button. So let me also change in the same way. So instead of a hyperlink which I'm giving here, I'll be giving it as a button. So this is how our HTML pages looks after all they did, and this is how now the IMDb login page looks. And they have used IMDb logo, which I'll be not using here because I can use it as a font or some here, but I will be not supposed to use IMDb image, so I'll keep it as it is. So it looks pretty much close. Yeah, we are missing that sign in banner which they have here. So I'll add that as well. So the page which I have built here is purely using HTML and CSS bootstraps, etc. So now this is a plain vanilla HTML which you can see here, and now it is not even completely converted into CSHTML. CS stands for C Sharp. So what I'll do is I'll start making the conversion so that it will be binding the values directly to the view models which we are going to create. So when I say view models, these are the class or complex object which will be holding the values which are given by a user. So for example, user enters some value in the email address, that should be sent to my controller back, right? On click of the sign in, I should be getting this email address which he has entered in under this particular input tab and password which is entered here. So this should come back to my controller where I'll be calling my module to fetch the data or to set the data. So to convert this into CSHTML, let's create a view model. So this models folder which you are seeing here, I'll be creating all my view models. I'll call it as login view model. As you also can see here, what I need is like an email address which is a string, again password which has to be a string because password can be a combination of alphanumeric, right, and a special character. So let me add properties which holds them. So this is email address and password. And one more thing you need to know is we need to add the validations for email address. Here someone should not be just typing AA or HHS, whatever the number or whatever the other things. So you can do it in multiple ways. One is add a type called email within your input field. Another is to add additional validations to this one. So one of the validation is required. So this has to be passed to me. So these are the fields which will add. So I'll show you how it will add. So for example, if you notice now in the input, there is no required, the data attributes with respect to the requiredness is not there. Once these fields are loaded and it is coupled with the CSHTML, I'll show you what are the other attributes gets added here, and that will add a client-side validations for you. Whenever this is not given or this is not obeyed, a respective client-side message will be displayed for the user so that he can take a appropriate action. So required, let me give a message. So the error message is on the UI to show a field as a mandatory, we'll be using asterisk symbols, but in the login page, it is not good to use, or it is not a practice which has been followed, because in the login screen, we will have only two fields, that is email and password, and it is common knowledge, it should be passed. Otherwise, it is not going to continue your authentication. So that's why that is the only reason you don't have this asterisk as of now here. But when you see the registration page or any another page or any forms, you'll be having asterisk symbols to make sure user will be able to readily identify those are the mandatory fields. So let me add this. Similarly, password is also mandatory for me. And as I said, I would be needing like a validator, like one validator is regex. So what I'll be doing is regex validations. So the regex validation will make sure they are giving a proper valid email address format or not. So they just typing HHH is not a valid email for me. So getting this at the server side and then validating for a user with this email address is doesn't make sense, right? So as you can see on the hover on the tooltip, please include @ for this email address, right? So because this is already of type email, so you can notice here already of type email, already you will get a pop-up here, but or a tooltip here, but it is not a validation error you are getting. Still, you will be allowed to proceed and click the sign in button, and it will hit the server. To avoid that, let me add the regex validations here. So in the higher version of email address, you no need to mandatorily write a regular expression to validate your email address. You already, like here, usually we will send the pattern and then the error message whenever this pattern is violated, right? So this is one way typically we used to do. But in the higher version of .NET, we have directly a email address attribute here, which will do the validation for you to check whether it is of a proper format or not. So here I can say email format is not valid. So you can use this as a combination, like whenever you feel the particular format is not getting validated from the default one, then you can go ahead with regex and try to achieve that one. For now, I'll remove this one. I'll be not needing this. This is more than enough for me to validate. So the password validation we can do at the time of user account creation. So I won't be adding a password validations here, just the required and email attribute validation. So if I run this application now, so currently by default it is going and hitting the home page. The default landing page is home. Instead of home, I need to change it to a login page. So here you have to change login. So it is a controller name and the action name. If I go ahead and run the application now, it will hit the login page, and that will be your landing page as of now. Remember that we have not yet done the C# binding here. Since I have raised a runtime compilation, I can do it even when the application is running. So I'll do once the application starts and it is visible. Let's make sure it is going to the login page. As you can see, the first landing page is our login page, and here, and let me inspect and show you, there is no validations as of now got added here to any of the input fields. As you can see, no validations are added. So let me do that binding. If this is not readily available for you, you have to bring it with a namespace. Before that, you have to type model. So now this particular page is binded to this particular view model. Now I can make the mapping or tightly coupling of them. There are two types of coupling you can do. One is using HTML helpers, other is a tag helper. I'll be going ahead with the tag helper. So for example, this is a tag helper syntax you will write. So ASP for, within this quotes I can mention which is the property I am trying to tag this particular field for. So one is email address. So as you can see, you are getting an IntelliSense, and similarly this is binded for this, and whenever there is an issue with respect to this, the validation should go right. For that, here you have to write ASP validations for, and similarly here also you can add email address. And one more thing is the label, also you can bring it from this particular itself, the property. You can add the attributes here, display attribute, and from there you can bind. As of now, I'll be not doing that changes. So I need a password, so let me change even this also. Currently you'll be getting it as email as mandatory itself. So I'll stop and do it at the later point. So let me do the changes for this as well. So now the page has been binded. So now the HTML, normal HTML is converted into CSHTML. As you can see, what are the values you are typing into this particular input fields? This will be automatically binded to this properties of the complex object. So upon refresh, as you can see, the validations got entered here. So you can see this attributes, right? Data attributes, data hyphen val hyphen email, and this is the message which will come. And whenever there is a issue with respect to the validation violation, this message will be displayed here. When I don't put any values here and try to directly click the sign in button, so it doesn't make a server call. So you can see that even here as well. So you can see the network component here, that is here, there is no server calls. Let me clear this. When I click the sign in, there is no server call happening. Let me put a debugger and show you in the controller part that it is not making any server calls. So let me place a debugger. So you can see, notice here, it is not getting hit here. So this is the advantage of client side validation. It doesn't make actual server calls, and it will be validated to the client side itself, and client also gets the notification what is the wrong he is making, and he can correct himself. So let me go ahead and change this one. Instead of email as mandatory, let me correct this message and add a sign in header here so that it looks completely similar to IMDb itself. Now it looks almost similar to IMDb page. Ignore the font. They're using a different font family and I'm using a different font family. And if I try to do a sign in without providing any values, it comes with a validation. And if I start typing a value here, it automatically the error goes. Like for example, here I start typing value 1, 2, 3. So you can see, right, the client side validation is already happening. But here if I do this one, even though I'm typing, you can see the error message got changed. Instead of mandatory, now it is email format is not valid. So once I give a valid format to this particular error also will go away. And this is a client side validation. Similar kind of activity I'll be doing for all the other upcoming UI CSHTMLs, and at the end I'll be explaining them. So writing the CSHTML on the video takes time, so I'll be doing them and I'll be explaining at the end once it is completely done. Before switching to the create account and this activities, what we will be doing, I'll explain here. So this particular login module is now binded here. So first hit will be to this one. If we don't mention any attribute here, whether it is HTTP, the HTTP verbs here, by default it is HTTP get, so this gets called. On click of this particular sign in button, the form should be submitted. When I say form submitted, what are the values you have written in this particular forms for this particular fields, the respective fields, that should be submitted to the controller. And whenever you do this operation, that is submit, with the click of the sign in button, form should know which is the controller or the action method I am going to call. For that, what you have to do is you have to come to forms and specify ASP action. So here, since it is within the same controller, I no need to mention the controller name. Otherwise, you need to even specify controller name. If it is within the same controller, it automatically resolves. So the precedency here is area. So this another, it is a separate concept. If you are interested, please let me know in the comment. I'll take a video on that. And then controller and then action methods. So here you can notice if I type ASP, you will get an option for area also here. And this is one option. And then as you have to type the method type. So here you have to type whether it is a post, get, or dialog. So post is the one because I am using a same login method and there is already a login method which is available in the controller. So how the HTML or the route will differentiate is based on the attribute. Now what I'll be doing here is I'll be making this, and here I'll be adding HTTP post, and here whenever someone calls this method, I need to be receiving that particular view model, that is login view model, and here I'll be calling my respective business logics or models, that is for carrying out my business logic and connecting to the database and fetching the data. So this is the same approach we'll be following for all the other development activities for different screens. You'll be having a get where you'll be having a screen. It is just a landing page which doesn't accept any parameter. Sometimes the even get method also requires parameter, but most of the time it will be optional. So it doesn't accept any parameter, and a particular get method will have a particular post method. Whenever you want to store the data into your database, this particular post method will be called, and UI page will be tightly coupled, that is CSHTML will be tightly coupled with a view model, and the forms will be having the actions and controller if requirement of specific controller, and method type of the forms will be kept as post, and the button type should be submit, so that if you don't make this as a submit, on click of that nothing will happen. If the button type is kept as button, nothing will happen. You have to make it as submit, and if you keep it as reset, whatever the type values you have typed, that will be removed automatically. So that we will implement for the registration page. So I have kept a breakpoint into this one, and whenever I do a sign in, this click of this button, it should come and hit this particular form. So let me keep here as well. So when I do this one, so as I said, the client side validations are happening. So let me give some dummy email address for now to bypass the client side validations, and password 123. So you can, as I said, you can add this validations even here as well. So when I click the sign in, as you can see, this particular post method got hit, and whatever the values you filled here, that is on the form, it should be visible here, or the data should be binding to this property. So as you can see, that is getting propagated to or transferred to your controller as well. So this is one of the advantage of using CSHTML. It gets auto binded and transmitted to your controllers. From here, I will be calling my business logics. So I'll be doing the same activities for login, registration page, and showing all the reviews, feedbacks, and the star ratings, and also the movie titles.